Hello everyone, my name is Ashish and welcome to the xadmin channel. So today we are going to discuss the interview questions for the Java full stack developer profile, and it is for like 4 to 6 years of experience. And here the technical stacks are like core Java, Spring Boot, REST API, microservice and Angular. So like recently I have appeared for the Cognizant for the profile of Java full stack developer. So today we are going to see the questions which I was encountered for this profile. So the first question was that which technologies you have used in your project. So basically in this you have to describe all the technologies which you have used in your like project, or also you can describe the technologies which you have used in your like previous application or the projects. So the next question was from the core Java basically, and he has gone like deep dive inside the string concept. So string topic is like very important. If you have the interview in the core Java, then I will suggest you to please go deep dive in the string and prepare yourself very well regarding these topics. So to me, the question was first question was like, what do you know about a string? So, so here basically a string is a class available inside the Java lang package, right? So string is a final class. So it cannot be extended by any of the other classes. As it is a final, so we cannot extend it. And string objects are immutable in nature. So what do you mean by immutable? So it means that once the string object is created, then it cannot be changed later on. So this is immutable. So a string is immutable. It means that if we create the object of a string, and if we try to uh, add any literal in that string, or if we try to modify that object, then always a new object will be created, right? So this is immutable, right? So the next question was that how you create the string object. So basically there are like two ways to create the string object. First, like by using the new keyword. So here you can see that string s1 equals to new string, and inside here you can pass the literal. So by using the new keyword you can create the string object, and also you can create the string object by without like using the new keyword, right? So here simply you can do string s2 equals to xadmin. So this is the literal, and s1 is also a string object, s2 is also a string object. Okay, so now the difference is actually in storing in their like memory. Okay, so the next question was that do you know how the string internal storage its difference in the memory? So basically here the string uses a special memory location for the using of the string literals, and this memory is called as string constant pool. So basically the string constant pool is a special memory in a heap memory, and it is used by the string to reuse the literals. So first we are going to see if we create the string object with the help of new keyword, then what are the internal like process are going on to store that particular reference variable to the heap memory. So basically if we create a string object with a new keyword, then first the JVM will check. It will check whether the corresponding literal is available inside a string constant pool or not. If it is not available, then it will create a new string literal inside that string constant pool, and then it will come out, and then it will create one more like literal inside the heap memory, and the reference will be assigned to that particular like reference variable which is created outside the string constant pool, right? So basically you have to understand that if we create a string object with a new keyword, then first of all it will check that whether any corresponding particular literal is present inside that string constant pool or not. So basically it is going to check that whether xadmin literal is like available inside a string constant pool or not. If that is not present, then it will create one reference there, and then it will come out, and inside the heap memory again it will create the another reference, and the reference will be assigned to that corresponding reference variable, right? Now the situation, if that literal is already present inside a string constant pool and we try to create the object with a new keyword, then what happens when we create a string object with a new operator, and if that string literal is already available, then it will not create the new literal inside a string constant pool. It will come out and it will create one literal outside a string constant pool, and that string reference will be assigned to that corresponding reference variable. It means that if already that literal is present inside a string constant pool, then it is not going to create that literal inside a string constant pool, because it is already there. Okay, it will come out and then it will create the another like same literal outside that string constant pool, and it will refer to that, and the value will be assigned to that particular reference variable, right? I hope you got my point. Now we are going to see how the memory storage is done if we are creating the string object without a new keyword. So there is another scenario. If we create the string object without new keyword like this here, so like when you create a string object without a new keyword, then firstly it will check whether that string literal is available inside a string constant pool or not. If that literal is not present inside that string constant pool, then it will create that string literal inside the pool, and it will point to that created literal. It means that here it will not come out and again it will not create in the heap memory. It will only create in a string constant pool and it will refer to that particular literal. If we are creating an string object without new keyword, right? I hope you understand my point. Now the second scenario, if we are creating object without new keyword, then the second scenario is that if that literal uh, is like already present in a string constant pool, then what happens? If a string literal is already present inside a string constant pool, then it will point to that particular literal itself, and it is not going to create any new literal inside or outside the string constant pool, right? So if you are creating an object without new keyword, then first it will check whether the string constant pool, whether that literal is present inside a string constant pool or not. If it is present, then it is not going to create any like literal inside or outside. It is just going to refer to that. And if that literal is not present inside a string constant pool, then it will create one like literal inside a string constant pool, and then it will refer to that, right? So these are the two scenarios, and you have to keep in mind, and also you have to explain this in a same way, right? So that the interviewer will come to know that you have a very deep knowledge about a string object or about a string topic, right? So these are the two scenarios, and also we have discussed how this get the like memory in a heap memory. Actually string uses a special memory, that is a string constant pool. That's right. Now the next question was that so now he said that, as you said earlier, that a string is immutable, right? So in the string definition I have already said that string is immutable. So he asked me that, do you know how we can create our own custom immutable class in Java? Yes, so it is possible. As a string is like immutable, we can create the same like custom class by ourselves in Java for any situations, right? So okay, so let's discuss how we can create custom like immutable class in Java. So there are the steps I have declared. First step you have to follow, you have to declare the class as final, so that it cannot be extended further. And right, and I hope you remember that string is also a final class. So basically it is final because it will not be extended further. It means that it cannot be inherited further, right? And the second point, that you have to declare all the fields or the member variables as final, so that the field value cannot be changed once assigned, right? So the second step you have to do, you have to mark your field as final. Now the third step, you have to declare all the fields or the member variable as private so that it cannot be accessed from outside the class directly. And also, and the fourth step, you don't provide any method which can change the state of the object. It means that you don't have to provide the setter method. Only you can provide the getter method so that from the outside you can access it. But it is not allowed to modify the particular member variables of that particular class. So you don't have to provide a setter method if you want to create your custom immutable class, right? So the fifth step is that you have to provide a parameterized constructor so that you can initialize all the fields or all the member variables, right? Performing a deep clone so that the data members can't be modified with an object reference, right? So these are the five steps you have to like keep in mind for creating a custom immutable class in Java. And this is like very important also because if the interviewer is like interested in a string topic, then like this type of questions will be surely you will encounter, right? So the next question, yeah. So here I have shown you one example of an custom immutable class. So you can see here that class xadmin. So it is marked as final so that it cannot be extended further or inherited further. And this is the member variable like private final string name. So here I have marked these like member variable name with final keyword and also as a private so that from outside it cannot be accessed, and also final so that it cannot be changed further when once initialized. And also here you can see I'm using constructor to initialize this final variable, right? And also here I have only assigned a getter method, not a setter method in this class. So the getter method can be used to access this particular member variable. So this is basically a immutable class, right? So once the object is created and the values are initialized, it is cannot be further modified, right? If we try to create the another object of xadmin, then it is going to create a new object, right? So this is the example of the immutable class. So the next question was that what is the difference between the class not found exception and no class def found exception? So this is really a nice and very important question, and this is like very confusing also for the developers. So you have to keep in mind, and also you have to remember that what is the difference between these. So class not found exception we get basically an exception that occur when you try to load a class at runtime. So let's say that you are using uh, let's say you are using a reflection package and you want to load a class at a runtime, okay, by using a class dot for name method or a load class method. Then and then if that mentioned class is not found in a class path, then at that time we will get a class not found exception, right? So basically if you try to load a class at a runtime and that class is not available in a class path, then we will get this exception, class not found exception, right? So the second is like no class def found like error. So this is basically a error, and these exceptions that occur when a particular class is present at a compile time but it is missing at a runtime is called as no class def found error, right? So basically we will get this error when if any class is present at the compile time. So compiler will compile all the classes and it will not give any error. But due to the some circumstances or due to some like issue, if that particular class is not present at runtime, then there may be chance that we will get a no class def found error, right? So these are the very two important like exceptions which you get, and this is like very confusing. So you can like remember this, and this is the sure short question you may get, right? So the next question was what is an exception in Java and how you handle exception in Java. So basically an exception is a failure condition that occurs during the execution of a program and it disturbs the normal flow of a program. Let's say that you have a program of 10 line and it is executing, and due to some condition which you have put on a program, and due to this your execution is getting disrupt or the normal flow of the program is getting like disturbed or disrupt, then there will be an exception like thrown by the JVM. So how you can handle this? You can handle this by using a try and catch block, right? So basically, an exception is a failure condition that occurs during the execution of a program and disrupt the normal flow of a program. And this has to be handled, right? So failing to this will actually terminate the program abruptly. So basically, you have to handle this exception. Otherwise, you will get a try and catch. Okay. So by try and catch block, you can handle this exception, right? So also you may get the question like how many type of exceptions are there, right? So basically there are checked exceptions and the unchecked exceptions. So what are checked exceptions? So checked exceptions are the exceptions which are checked by the compiler itself. Let's say that uh, you want to open a file and you want to copy some data of that file to the another file. So for that you have to open that file, right? So now you will use the input output package for this. So now if you will, as you will write the code for opening a file, then there may be chance that the file will not get found. Okay. So the compiler will the compiler will give you the indication that like there may be chance that file not found will exception may occur. So you have to handle this like beforehand only, like before running your yeah, like before running your application or the program. So the compiler checks the code and it feels that so there may be an exception. So compiler indicate that you have to handle this. So this is the checked exception. So checked exceptions are the exceptions which are checked by the compiler. Okay. So yeah, so when it is compiling, then it will check that here we will get this exception. So these are checked exception. Now the another is unchecked exception. So unchecked exceptions are like coming at the runtime basically, right? So so like unchecked exceptions comes uh, like basically when you have put it some logic and it is failing. Let's say that if you are dividing any number by zero, then here you will get an exception. So these type of arithmetic exception you will get, right? So these type of exceptions are called as unchecked exceptions. It means that the compiler is not checking that you have to handle it, or the compiler is not enforcing you have to handle it, right? So these are unchecked exceptions, right? So also you get the array out of bound exception. So when you get the array out of bound, if you are accessing any like variable which is out of bound index, let's say that if the size of the array is 5 and you try to access the sixth element, sixth index, then here you may get the like the area out of band exception, right? So these are unchecked exceptions, right? And like if you will go deep beneath this, then there are also two type of checked exceptions, like fully checked and the partially checked. So yeah, so regarding the fully checked, if the parent class and the child class are both are getting checked by the compiler, then that is known as the fully checked exception. And what is the partial checked exception? If only if only the parent class are checked by the compiler but not the child class, then like that type of exception are called as partially checked exception, right? So these are about the exception. And yeah, and here I have tried to explain the more questions for you. Now the next question was is finally block always be executed? Yeah, so finally block is always executed, and it is used basically to for the cleanup purpose. Let's say that you have opened some resource or file, or and you're doing like network like execution in your try block. And like generally as a developer, we try to forget to close that particular resource, right? So there may be chance that we will get a memory leak or like memory shortage, okay, in the end. So for this a finally block can be used. So actually the finally block always be executed, but there is one situation where the finally block will not be executed. and that is the situation if our program encountered with system.exist. Okay, then inside a try block or inside a catch block, then it will interrupt, okay, abruptly, and here the finally block will not be executed. So finally block always get executed. Only one scenario is there, when if it's found system.exist in a try block or in a catch block, then only the finally block will not get like executed, right? So the next question was like, what are the http methods? So now he moved to the REST API. So he asked like what are the http methods and what is http. So basically http is like a protocol, and it is used to communicate between the client and the server model. Okay, so HTTP methods are like get method, post method, put method, delete method, head method, option method, patch method, right? So these are the methods of HTTP methods. So now he can ask you that which HTTP methods mostly you have used in your project or in your microservice when you build your REST API. So yeah, so you can like name them according to your requirement. So you can say that get, we have mostly used get, post, put, right? So now the next question he will ask that what is the difference between the get and put. So basically, in get, the data goes with the URL, and the get method is not like basically safe, because the data are going with the URL, so it can be exposed to the public, right? But if you're using the post method, then the data goes with the request body, so it is quite safe, right? So this is the difference between the get and the post. And also he may ask you that what is the that what is the put method, right? So here the put method is like if you want to update your resource, then you can use the put method. Okay, so you have to send your payload inside your request body. Okay, and then it will update it. So first it will check that particular resource is present inside the database or not. If it is not there, then it will create your new resource, and if it is like already there, then it will not create it, it will update it. So this is the put functionality. Okay, so now the next question was from the MySQL, actually SQL query. He asked me to write or to say a query to fetch the name of the employee who earns the highest salary, right? So here you can do this by writing select first name and the salary from the employee table, where the salary equals to, and then you can use the subquery as select, and here you can do the maximum salary from employee. So here like basically first we are finding the maximum salary of the employee, and then and then from there we are doing the first name and the salary from the employee, right? So in this way we can find the highest salary earned by the employee, right? So the next question was like, what is join and what are the types of join? So basically, joins are used to fetch the data from the multiple tables, and it is used with the select statement, right? So basically, joins are used to fetch the data from a multiple tables. So type of joins are like inner join, which is also called a simple join, left outer join, and the right outer join. So basically, what is inner join? So inner join are the join, it fetch the data from the two table or multiple table in which the common datas are there. Let's say that there are two tables and we want to fetch the data which are common between these two tables, then we can use the inner join. In the similar way, there is like left outer join. So when to use left outer join? If you want to fetch the two data from the table and you want to fetch the whole data of a left table, but the common data from the right table, then you can go with the left outer join. In the similar way, you can go for right outer join if you want to fetch the whole data from the right table and the common data from the left table, then you can go for right outer join. So these are the type of joins which we can use like according to your like requirement. So the next question he asked that what are the bean scope in Spring? So he asked me that have you used Spring or do you have any knowledge about Spring? Then he came about the bean scopes. So basically there are five type of bean scopes. First is singleton, second prototype, request, session, and the global session. right? So singleton is that a single instance will be created for per Spring IOC container. So it is like a singleton here. Like every time if the object is requested by the developer for this bean, then here a single instance will be only there and it will be given to the developer, right? So here a single instance will be created, which is for a per IOC container. And there is another scope, that is prototype. So if we define the bean as a prototype, it means that a multiple instance will be created. So every time a requested for a bean object, then every time a new like object will be created for that bean. So this is prototype. And what is request? So request scope, so the scope of a bean will be to the particular http request only. Okay. And session, so the scope of that bean will be per http session. And like global session, the scope of the bean will be global to the http session, right? So this is all five beans which are defined here. So the next question he asked, that what is RESTful web service? Basically the REST is an architectural design pattern, right? It is used for building the services that could be lightweight, scalable, and easy maintenance. So here you can define the advantages, that with the RESTful web services, you can build your web application which are very lightweight, which are scalable. It means that according to a requirement, you can increase or decrease the size of your like web service, and also it is easy maintenance, right? So next question was, why REST web service are stateless? So here, basically the REST web service are stateless. The reason is that it supports HTTP protocol, right? And HTTP is a stateless protocol. So REST is also stateless. So what do you mean by stateless here? It means that when you send a request from the client to the server, and the server is not going to hold any info from of the client, right? Any info it is not going to hold it, then that is known as a stateless. It is not going to hold any info or any state of the user or the request, right? So this is stateless. So the next question was, what things are important in sending a request? So basically the things are like resource, request header, request body, response body, and the status code. So these are the important things while sending a request, right? And also he asked about some of the annotations which I have used in my REST full web services, he asked that what do you mean by at the rate request, like request mapping. Also he asked the difference between at the rate rest controller and the controller, right? And also he asked some like uh, like what is like at the rate bean annotation. So these are the questions which you can like prepare. So now he moved to the UI part. So in the UI part, he asked that what is this an Angular framework and why you choose Angular framework for your project. So here you have to like discuss that what is Angular framework and why you choose the reason of choosing the Angular in your project, because there is n number of other like frameworks like React, right? Like Vue, and also the JavaScript is also there. So there are like n number of frameworks are there out in the market. So why you choose Angular only? So basically, Angular is an open source front end web development framework based on TypeScript, right? So Angular starts as a single page application. So basically, Angular is a single page application. It starts with the index.html, and then the router come in picture. And due to the router here, the URLs are defined. So with the URL, it loads all the component one by one into that particular like template, right? So this is a single page application. Here only a single page is loaded, that is index.html, and after that the routing, with the routing the further components get loaded, and yeah, and then like rendered in the UI. So we choose Angular for our project. The reason, so here you can discuss the advantages of the Angular framework, right? So the advantages are like it is component based architecture. It means For every module you can create a different component and you can reuse that component, right? So it brings the loose coupling, and also it break your like application into modules. So this is the one main reason for using the Angular framework. And Angular are like very fast, dynamic, and also a scalable web application. So actually we required these conditions, right? So that's why we go for the Angular framework. And also it support two-way binding, basically like a very uh, like in the market there are very less frameworks which are supporting two-way binding, right? So what is two-way binding? Two-way binding is means, let's say that I do a change in in a TypeScript file, and then that changes will be reflected to your template also, or to your UI also, right, in the same time. So this is two-way binding. It means that the data can be transferred from the component to the template, and template to the component at the same time. So this is two-way binding. So this is supported by the Angular. And also the in Angular it provide a template syntax for creating the UI view. So UI view you can create in a very good manner or in a very separate way, right? And also it can handle the process seamlessly. And also it has the good integration for your REST full web services API calls, right? So it can be very easily connect with your microservice which are built with the REST API, right? So these are the some advantages. And also you can check through the internet that what are the more advantages of using the Angular framework. So you can discuss all those points so that you can choose the Angular framework in your project. So the next question was like, what is the interpolation in Angular? So basically, the interpolation is a property binding, and it is defined with the these like syntax with the double like curly braces, right? So double curly braces represent the interpolation. So basically, it is a special syntax, and the Angular convert it to the property binding. And you can think of it like alternate of the property binding also in the Angular. And let's say that if you have defined any like member variable of a component to these means like inside this curly braces, then directly those value will be like rendered in the UI, right? So this is the interpolation in Angular, right? So let's say that I have one component, or inside a class, I have one variable with the name, and name contains the value xadmin. Now I want to like render that particular name value inside my like template or UI. So directly you can use these like syntax, and inside the syntax you can write like name. So it will use the property binding, and it will take the data from that component, and it will render it directly to your UI, right? So here it will display xadmin, right? So this is the interpolation. So now the next question he asked, that how do you transfer the data in Angular? So basically there are like many ways to transfer the data. So first of all, you have to check whether you have to transfer the data, means you have to check the relationship between the two component. Let's say that I want to transfer the data between the two component. And let's say that if I want to transfer the data from a child to a parent component, then here I can use at the rate output. Okay, so with the at the rate output, we can transfer the data from child to parent. And let's say that the relationship between the two component are from parent to child, and I want to transfer the data from parent to child. So here I can use at the rate input decorator, right? And let's say that there is the third two components which are not linked up with each other, or there is no relationship between them. Then you can go for a service class. So with the help of the service class, you can transfer the data from one component to the another component which are not in any relationship, right? So these are the ways by which you can transfer the data in Angular, right? So yeah. And at last he also asked like some like about how many years you have worked in Angular and all, right? So this is all about the interview questions which I encountered. uh, okay, yeah. So we will see you in the next lecture with a new like session of a different like interview question set for a different organization, right? So thank you and have a nice day.